In 2012, Catholic News Service invited then Father Prevost to share the full text of his intervention at the Synod of Bishops on the new evangelization, a gathering that pulsed with the urgency of rekindling faith in a world growing cold to the gospel. Afterward, we posed questions that probed the heart of his presentation, seeking to unravel its implications for a church standing at a crossroads. The questions have been distilled for clarity, but his responses remain untouched, brimming with insight. What follows is a reimagined exploration of those themes, infused with vivid imagery and a gripping sense of stakes. We're not just recounting a moment, we're inviting you into a story of a church wrestling with how to speak truth to a fractured world, how to awaken hearts dulled by secular noise, and how to rediscover the fire of faith in an age that's forgotten how to feel its warmth. The question of how to evangelize in today's world is a labyrinth, its paths twisting through the complexities of a society that's both hyper-connected and profoundly disconnected. The Synod of Bishops, convened in the shadow of the Vatican's ancient domes, grappled with this challenge like explorers charting an untested frontier. Their debates echoed through marble halls, a chorus of voices seeking to answer a singular question. How do we carry the gospel to a world that no longer listens? Most within the Church today recognize the indispensable role of modern media, the digital cathedrals of our age, where ideas clash and stories spread like wildfire. This isn't a rejection of those tools. Far from it. The Church sees the potential in these platforms, these virtual pulpits that can carry the message of Christ to corners of the globe once unimaginable. Social media, television, and the internet are not enemies, but allies, if wielded with wisdom. Yet the Synod's discussions, rich with the weight of centuries, returned again and again to a deeper truth. The new evangelization doesn't begin with algorithms or viral campaigns. It begins with a spark, a personal encounter with Jesus Christ, a moment where the soul is stirred to rediscover what it means to have faith, to walk with a Savior, to know a God who, as St. Augustine so piercingly wrote, is closer to us than we are to ourselves. This encounter is no small thing in a world where God feels like a distant rumor. Society today is a mosaic of alienation, its pieces scattered by secularism, consumerism, and a relentless pursuit of fleeting pleasures. People chase meaning in the glow of screens, in the promises of ideologies that crumble under scrutiny, yet they remain estranged from the divine presence that dwells within. To invite them back, to help them rediscover God's nearness, to rekindle the meaning of a relationship with Christ, is a challenge that towers like a mountain. It demands more than clever slogans or polished productions. It requires a return to the heart of faith, a plunge into the mystery of a God who is love, who reveals himself through Jesus, who walks among us still. The Synod's voices were clear. Spectacle won't suffice. The past 50 years have taught the Church a hard lesson, etched in the failures of fleeting trends and theatrical gestures. Grand displays, designed to dazzle, often leave people with something shallow, a momentary thrill that fades like a sparkler in the night. True faith, the kind that reshapes lives, isn't found in flashing lights or staged drama. It's found in the quiet, transformative encounter with the divine, in the mystery of a God who dwells within humanity, revealed in the person of Christ. This truth was brought to life by a young Roman catechist, just 23, whose words at the Synod burned with a fire that belied his youth. He spoke of preparation, especially for priests, urging the Church to guide people toward this mystery rather than distract them with empty showmanship. The liturgy, he argued, must be a doorway to God, not a performance for applause. Faith isn't about fleeting excitement. It's about touching the eternal, about meeting the God who is love, who is present in every heart. Too often, people have been led astray, chasing God in places that promise quick answers but deliver only shadows, false paths that obscure the truth of who God is and what a life of faith demands. The young catechist's voice joined a chorus at the synod, including our own, calling for a renewed focus on formation, on equipping priests to lead people not to spectacle but to the sacred. Here, the Church Fathers, particularly St. Augustine, emerge as timeless guides. Their wisdom, rediscovered in the wake of Vatican II, shines like a beacon through the fog of our age. From the Council's documents to Pope Benedict's teachings, we see constant nods to Augustine, to Ambrose, to Gregory the Great, voices that resonate with striking clarity. Why? Because the early Church faced a world eerily like ours, a culture seduced by secular answers, yet hungry for deeper meaning. The Fathers understood that the search for truth, about life, death, identity, purpose, cannot be satisfied by the world's hollow promises. They lived in an age of empires and philosophies where myths of power and pleasure lured souls away from the divine. Augustine, in his Confessions, tells of a pirate meeting an emperor, a story we referenced at the Synod to unmask the illusions society spins. These myths, whether peddled by ancient rulers or modern media, promise fulfillment but deliver emptiness, leading people down paths that glitter but collapse. The Father's wisdom cuts through this noise, revealing what's true and lasting. Their insights aren't dusty relics. They're a living well, offering nourishment to a world parched for meaning. Augustine's voice, in particular, rings out across the centuries. His life, restless, searching, marked by ambition, friendship, and failure, became a canvas for God's grace. He didn't shy away from his humanity. He saw it as the path to the divine. His encounter with truth wasn't a spectacle, but a quiet unfolding, a realization that God was nearer than his own heartbeat. This perspective, echoed in Vatican II and beyond, is a gift for today's world. We live in an age of competing narratives, where secularism offers answers that crumble under scrutiny. People seek meaning in wealth, status, or self-defined identities, only to find themselves empty. The Fathers, with their keen understanding of human longing, remind us that the answers lie not in the world's clamor, but in the quiet truth of God's presence. They offer a map for navigating today's spiritual wilderness, guiding us toward a faith that satisfies the soul's deepest questions. But what of the media itself, that ever-present force shaping hearts and minds? Turning away from it isn't the answer, nor is it feasible in a world where screens are as ubiquitous as air. Consider a striking paradox. A contributor to a major U.S. news network, immersed in the media's whirlwind, chooses not to own a television. This choice speaks volumes. It's not about rejecting media, but about approaching it with discernment, with eyes wide open to its power and its pitfalls. The real challenge lies in formation, equipping people to think critically, to sift through the torrent of messages that flood their lives. Not every headline is true. Not every narrative is benign. Beneath the surface of polished ads, trending posts, or slick news segments often lies a subtler agenda, one with profound consequences for society's soul. We've seen this shift ourselves, living outside the U.S. and returning to find television, sitcoms, news shows, even casual programs, saturated with slanted arguments, values that tilt away from truth, and a relentless push toward shallow fulfillment. This isn't unique to America. It's a global phenomenon, varying by culture, but universal in its challenge. At the synod, an Italian approached us, bristling at our mention of abortion. "We don't talk about that in Italy," he said. Yet he admitted that Italian media shapes political and social narratives, wielding influence by controlling what people hear. In every corner of the Western world, media holds sway, shaping thought by repetition, by framing, by omission. The lesson is stark. Whoever commands the narrative holds power over minds. Our response isn't retreat, but engagement, formation that empowers people to question, to discern, to see the bigger picture. This isn't just about media literacy. It's about fostering a mindset that seeks truth amid the noise, that refuses to take every message at face value. The Synod underscored this, emphasizing that formation, especially of priests, is the cornerstone of the new evangelization. The Sunday homily, often the only catechesis most Catholics receive, is a sacred moment, a fleeting 8 to 15 minutes to spark that encounter with Christ. Yet, as some Synod Fathers admitted with a wry smile, we must examine ourselves. Are we preaching well? Are we reaching hearts? Are we conveying the gospel's power or settling for safe platitudes? The homily isn't just a speech. It's a lifeline, a chance to draw people into the mystery of God's love, to invite them to rediscover the faith that transforms. Beyond the pulpit, the Church faces a broader challenge: organizing adult education, ongoing catechesis, and sacramental preparation that doesn't end with a ceremony, but grows through every stage of life. In every culture, we must ask, how do we bring people back? How do we reach those who've drifted, some actively rejecting the Church, others slipping away in quiet apathy? This question haunted the Synod's discussions, sparking vibrant exchanges that lit up the room. Some offered practical solutions: parish programs, community outreach, youth initiatives, but the deeper challenge is reaching those who won't be in the pews on Sunday. Many encounter the Church only through fragments: a tweet, a news clip, a passing conversation. Here, social media becomes a double-edged sword, a tool of immense potential and risk. Bishops in the U.S., for example, maintain Facebook pages or Twitter accounts, sharing reflections that ripple across the globe. We've seen this ourselves, posting a brief thought on Facebook, a scripture verse, a reflection, an invitation, and watching responses flood in from Augustinians and lay people worldwide. A single word, a small gesture, can plant a seed, stirring someone to reconsider their faith, to pause and reflect on the God who waits for them. Yet social media's reach comes with dangers. Without discernment, it can mislead as easily as it inspires, amplifying shallow narratives or divisive agendas. The Church must be savvy, not chasing trends, but meeting people where they are, offering a glimpse of the gospel's truth in a language they understand. This requires sophistication, a willingness to engage the digital world without being seduced by its flash. The Synod's discussions on this point were electric, filled with ideas for harnessing media's power while grounding it in formation. We must teach people to navigate the digital landscape with critical minds, to see through the illusions that mask themselves as wisdom. This isn't about turning off the screens, but about turning on the light of discernment, helping people recognize the subtle messages that shape their worldview and challenge their faith. Another vital force in this mission is religious life, a cornerstone of the Church's witness through the ages. From the first evangelization to today, consecrated men and women have been the Church's pioneers, carrying the gospel to new lands, founding local churches, and serving on the margins where others might not go. They built schools, hospitals, and universities, shaping the Church's presence in a world often hostile to its message. Vatican II called religious communities to rediscover their founding charisms, to return to the fire that sparked their mission, and that renewal has borne fruit. though not without challenges. Tensions, even missteps, have marked this journey, as religious life navigated its place in a changing church. Yet the synod we attended affirmed its enduring gift. 10 superiors general, including ourselves, represented this voice, joined by women religious and bishops from orders like the Franciscans, Salesians, and Augustinians. Their presence wasn't symbolic. It was a recognition that religious life's charisms, poverty, chastity, obedience, are a living witness to the kingdom, a sign of the world to come. This harmony wasn't always a given. Over the past 50 years, religious life has faced moments of disconnect, sometimes overshadowed by new ecclesial movements or misunderstood by the broader church. Some saw these movements, vibrant, lay-led communities, as taking up roles traditionally held by religious, creating tensions that weren't always resolved. Yet the synod we attended felt different, described by veteran bishops as the most harmonious in decades. This wasn't about ignoring past challenges, but addressing them openly, recognizing the complementary gifts of religious life, lay movements, and the hierarchy. The final propositions called for a fuller integration of these dimensions: consecrated life, contemplative orders, secular institutes, and episcopal leadership, working together for the Church's mission. Consecrated life, in particular, stands apart not for its works, but for its essence, a total dedication to God through vows, a radical sign of the kingdom. Unlike lay movements, which often focus on active service, religious life's witness lies in being, living for God in a way that speaks even in silence. This distinction matters, especially in places like South Sudan or remote missions, where religious often go where families cannot. They bring the gospel to the margins, to places of poverty, conflict, or despair, where the Church's presence is a lifeline. The Synod's recognition of this role was a powerful affirmation, a call for religious to renew their commitment to serve the Church's needs, just as they were founded to do. Each order, born in a specific moment of history, carries a charism that speaks to today's challenges, whether through education, mission, or contemplation. The Church's schools and universities, many founded by religious, remain vital spaces for formation, shaping minds and hearts in a world desperate for truth. The Synod's timing, coinciding with the 50th anniversary of Vatican II and Pope Benedict's Year of Faith, felt providential. It was a moment to renew the Council's vision, ecumenical dialogue, the Church's mission in the world, the universal call to holiness. The final message to the people of God was a clarion call, joyful yet sobering, acknowledging a world increasingly deaf to the gospel. Yet it brimmed with hope, urging all Catholics, through their baptismal call, to share the good news with courage and creativity. This optimism wasn't naive. It was rooted in the belief that the Church, guided by the Spirit, can meet these challenges with a fire that burns brighter than the world's distractions. At the heart of this vision lies experience, human experience as a doorway to God. St. Augustine, whose Confessions remains a global touchstone, understood this better than most. His life, marked by ambition, friendship, family, and a restless search for truth, became a canvas for God's grace. He didn't shy away from his humanity. He saw it as the path to the divine. His encounter with truth wasn't a spectacle, but a quiet unfolding, a realization that God was nearer than his own heartbeat. This insight is a gift for today's individualistic age, where happiness is often reduced to fleeting pleasure or self-centered fulfillment. Augustine reminds us that true happiness transcends the self, embracing solidarity with others, a love that reflects God's own. His writings on friendship, family, even failure show how human experience, when offered to God, becomes a bridge to holiness. This isn't about navel-gazing or egoism. It's about discovering God in the messiness of life and letting that encounter draw us into communion with others. This openness to experience isn't new. It's a rediscovery, a return to the wisdom of the Church Fathers. They lived in a world much like ours, where secular philosophies promised answers but left souls empty. Their insights, honed in the crucible of early Christianity, offer treasures for the new evangelization. Augustine's clarity, his ability to weave human experience into divine truth, cuts through the noise of a culture obsessed with the superficial. He points to a happiness that endures, a truth that liberates. The new evangelization, then, is not a program, but an invitation to encounter Christ, to find God in the ordinary, to live that truth in solidarity with others. The challenge is immense, but the Church, guided by the Spirit and enriched by its ancient wisdom, is ready to meet it, not with flash, but with faith, not with spectacle, but with the quiet power of a God who is always near.